great mood. Yes, I just think the weather,
I know.
just something in my heart. Yeah, exactly. And it just has been a rough everything. And today just felt like, okay.
All right, so for those who are
Little
joining
bit.
us virtually, welcome.
Welcome. Shabbat Shalom. As you can see, I am surrounded, and tonight on my right is Robert Melman. Bob, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Bob.
And we're going to begin welcoming the Malachei Elyon, the Malachei Hasharet, the ministering angels, the spirits around the knowing world that knows us, that we can feel but we don't see. We say Shalom. May peace and wholeness be with you, and may we tap into it with you. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Ami Melech Malchei Hamlachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu, Boachem Leshalom, Boachem Leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Ami Melech Malchei Hamlachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu, Baruchuni Lishalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Hamlachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Welcome, Zeichem Lishalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Ami Melech Malchei Hamlachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Welcome, everybody, those people who snuck in the back row, we see you.
Yes.
Shabbat Shalom. Welcome, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom to those who are in person. Shabbat Shalom to those who are joining us virtually. All right.
Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi.
Shabbat Shalom, Cantor. We're gonna continue now with the lighting of our Shabbat candles. I realize we don't have a B'nai Mitzvah this week, so
We
I didn't
don't.
find one. Is there anybody who wants the honor of lighting the Shabbat candles tonight? Anybody? Ah, Robin, of course. Come on up. Right here.
All right, one more try and I'm coming over. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu להדליק נר של שבת. I guess are we doing a communal kiddush?
We'll say it all together. Right?
Fantastic.
Yes. So we'll join together in Kiddush.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech
haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'yahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron l'maaseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila lemikra'e kodesh zecher letziat mitzrayim kivanu v'cha
ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים.
ושבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת.
Amen.
We move forward now in our prayer book, page 20, Lechadodi.
Here we go. Lechadodi לקראת כליה, יאללה, יאללה, ונשבת נקבלה.
We're on the page, bottom of page 31. This is an hour of change. Within it we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? Baruch atah Adonai, Hama'ariv Aravim, page 32.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בעם בשבתך בביתך ולכתך בדרך ושוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot. That wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there's a better place, a promised land. The winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. We're on page 40 as we join together in a familiar melody for this holiday season.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות עושה פלא, מלכותך ראו בניך בוקע ים לפני משה ומרים, זה עלינו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב גלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני גאל Israel.
We're on page 43. Give us a place to rest, Adonai our God. Bring us into shelter in the soft, long evening shadows of your truth. For with you are true protection and safety, and in your presence are acceptance and gentle love. Watch over us as we go forth, prepare for us as we return. Spread over us your shelter of peace over all we love, over our Jerusalem and yours. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. Bottom of page 44.
ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת, ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת.
Thank you.
מקדש שבי שבת כולם יספעו ויתענגו מטובך שבת, ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת, ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת, מהשביעי רצית בו וקידשתו שבת, חמדות ימים אותו קראת שבת, ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת, ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת, למעשה בראשית שבת, זכר למעשה בראשית שבת, ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת. One more time. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת.
I'll invite us to rise together, page 46, as we move into this opening meditation, moving into silence after that.
אדוני שפתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha.
We can do Shabbat. Take another moment to breathe in and breathe easy. Page 60 or some other page perhaps as well. Shalom Rav, join us. Abundant peace, may we all know.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amecha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata hu melech Adon lechol השלום, כי אתה הוא מלך אדון לכל השלום. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. בטוב עיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך.
Let's breathe in one more time.
שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. ברוך אתה אדוני המברך את עמו ישראל בשלום.
Move in our service to page 253 as we have this opportunity to offer a Misha Berach for those in need of healing. And I'll begin the prayer here and ask for names as I look around the room. And those that are on Zoom, if you'd like to add some names, please add them in the chat as well. And then we'll go to the video. Misha Berach Avotenu Vimotenu, Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov, Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah, Hu Yivarech et HaCholim. The one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal those who are ill. And I ask you for some names. May the Blessed Holy One be filled with compassion for their health to be restored and their strength to be revived. May God swiftly send them a complete renewal of body and spirit. And let us say, Amen, as we look to the screen.
מקור הברכה לאמותינו. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu mikor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
The Montclair Public School System does not observe Shabbat.
Oh, yes.
They just called me. They didn't realize that.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
It's a rare week that there isn't one piece of news that feels like it floats to the top above every other piece of news. But this week, there's a lot to talk about. But today, in fact, I'm not going to talk about the floods, the historic floods that happened around us, though it was the scariest night of driving that I've ever had. I'm not going to talk about any number of issues because I feel like what has been on my heart the most has been what's been going on in Texas right now. And I want to spend a little bit of time talking about exactly what's wrong with Texas. Because there's a line in our Torah portion that I keep coming back to over and over. And it's something, by the way, that I struggle with all the time. Because there's an inherent tension in Judaism between butting into people's business and butting out of people's business. And I want to spend a little bit of time unpacking that tension, because that tension is at the core of the problem with the abortion law in Texas right now. In our Torah portion this week, we're told that revealed things are for the community to deal with, whereas hidden things are for God. And the understanding, it's actually meant to be a kind of warning to those people who are about to sin. It's telling those people that, look, even if society doesn't know you have done wrong, if society doesn't see abuse going on in your home, if they don't see adultery, if they don't see stealing, they don't see sin, God still sees it. And the other night we were talking about this really important idea that actually one of the more important Jewish law codes of recent centuries begins with, which is Psalm number 16. Sheviti Adonai lenegdi tamid, that I place God before me always. And if you live your life feeling like God is watching us, we always will behave well. That if nothing you understood to be secret from the universe, then ultimately you will always act well. But there is a divide between God knowing what goes on in your life and the right of other people to know what goes on in your life as well. And so Judaism cares tremendously for the idea of privacy. Now, privacy is at the heart of Roe v. Wade. And for anybody who's ever studied Roe v. Wade and understood kind of what does the Supreme Court go after, there probably could be any number of values and laws that the Supreme Court pegged Roe v. Wade to. But in fact, Roe v. Wade is pegged more than anything to the idea of privacy, to the idea that no law should be made which is going to interrupt your decisions about your life, your body. Because at the end of the day, having people too involved in your business, that's dangerous. Now, Judaism understands this. And that prayer that we begin every morning with, a prayer that we're going to start tomorrow morning with, right? Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. How good are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places, O Israel, is actually originally from the Bible. That when a foreign prophet stood on top of a mountain named Balaam, ready to curse the Jewish people, he noticed something about them. He noticed that every one of their tents, they were great urban designers, say our ancient rabbis. Every one of their tents faced away from the other. So no door opened into any other door, no window into any other window. The Jews were especially good at protecting one another's privacy. And that's the reason that when he opened his mouth ready to bless us, he blessed us by our tents. How good are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places, O Israel. And from that ethic is derived many, many heaps of laws about the notion of nezek re'iyah, of damage that's done from people who can see into your business. We're told, by the way, in the Talmud, the ancient law code from the 5th, 6th century, that if someone wants, they're allowed to build a wall, a huge fence between them and their neighbor. Because although it might look like an eyesore, although it might be unfriendly, at the end of the day, if you can keep someone's window from looking into your window, that takes priority. That tremendous damage is done by looking too deeply into someone's life, by seeing what is going on. We're told that one of the great curses that you can give to another person, one of the great ways that you can be angry in that same law code, is if someone enters your tent without knocking. The idea is that you need to be able to decide who comes in and who comes out. You need to be able to decide, am I presentable or do I need to make them wait until I am? Privacy is crucial, even if we live in a world that doesn't always seem that way. But there's this other value that butts up against that. And that value is the idea that we are supposed to be in each other's business. I often call it being yentas for good or being Batinskis for good, right? The idea is that you're supposed to know what is happening in other people's lives in order to help them. That if I know that someone is sick, I can bring them a meal. If I know someone is in mourning, I can show up at their doorstep during Shiva to be there for them. If I know that someone is doing wrong, if they're abusing their children or their spouse, for example, I can stand up and I can do something about it. And that tension between privacy and being involved in people's lives is one of the great tensions in Jewish ethics. It's one of the great tensions of Jewish values. But the problem with the law in Texas is that it misses the point of when it is that you are supposed to protect privacy and when it is when you are supposed to engender people being in each other's lives. Because there's an idea in Jewish law which is called to'elet, which means being beneficial or useful to another person. You may not speak about another. You may not gossip. You may not talk. You may not get into one another's lives unless by doing so you are directly beneficial to them. Not ancillary, right? Not beneficial to another person, not beneficial to yourself, not even beneficial to society. The only way that you can destroy that bond of privacy that you are ensured by living in a Jewish society is if doing so will be beneficial to the person for which you know that private piece of information for. And the truth is that standard is far from met in Texas. That standard is so far from met that the privacy, I would say, is the epitome of nezek re'iyah, of finding out against someone's privacy and deciding that you are going to harm not only them, but the rest of the people who are involved in letting a woman make a choice of what's going to happen to her body. That the law in Texas flies in the face of the value of protecting others' privacy. So to return to our Torah portion, you got to let God know what God knows, and you got to let society know what society knows. And to mix up the two is hugely problematic. So what can we do about it? I've been thinking a lot about this. And although in the short term, I'm not sure I necessarily have an answer, besides, of course, there are going to be organizations that are going to pay people's bonds and are going to ensure that people who need to fly out of state can fly out of state, and letting practitioners know that the rest of the country supports them. And all of that is important. But I want to talk about the long game for a second. And I want to say that although I just spent a bunch of time talking about privacy, I've been thinking about what we can do to help ensure that laws like this don't happen again. And I think the answer is actually less privacy. But the answer is that it comes on behalf of the person who's deciding to reveal their own information. So let me explain. Part of the reason that we got where we did with gay marriage is because enough people came out of the closet, enough people told their loved ones who they loved, and you started realizing that you actually knew people who were gay. You knew people who were lesbians. And from that came a general understanding, and society began to grow ready to talk about it. Part of the reason that infertility is no longer something that really we don't talk about anymore. People talk about IVF is because we are willing to talk about it. It used to be shameful and it is not anymore. Cancer used to be shameful, but we have breast cancer walks now. And it's become something that's out in the open that people are ready to talk about. I know that it's strange to be a man giving this piece of advice, but one of the last great frontiers of shame in our culture is that of abortion. Most of us know multiple people who have had abortions, and most of us can't name those people because we don't realize we do. Being a rabbi, I've talked to many people who have decided to have abortions. Some of them have abortions because of abuse. Some of them have abortions because they made a mistake. Others have abortions, and the most common, at least in my talking to people, is because they made painful decisions about children with special needs, whether they wanted to keep them or not. Maybe they didn't want to burden younger siblings or older siblings, or maybe they weren't ready for that in their life. But their decision is their decision. But because we don't talk about it, most of us don't realize just how many people we know that this has touched. And it makes those who dealt with it feel more alone, like only God's eyes are on them, rather than society's open and loving arms. Shame is fed by secrecy. They are intertwined together. Secrecy is the agardish of shame. And the way that we can deal with that is to take away secrecy. So abortion is no longer a shameful thing, but rather is just a natural decision on the part of a woman on what she is going to do with her own body, with the life that lives within her. So it's a difficult tension to walk. But the key is that the privacy that I spoke about at the beginning is a gift that every single one of us owns on our own. We get to decide what happens to our own information. And if we share that information, if we share those stories, who knows what's going to happen? Now, I've been thinking about that because I've been seeing people share their stories everywhere. Over the past couple days, I've watched specifically rabbis come forward, female rabbis, who have said publicly about their own stories with abortion. And I've watched as people have commented and that they've invited in the conversation as well. Not every one of us is ready. Not every one of us is going to be ready. And if you are never ready, do not worry. Your information is your information. Privacy is paramount. It is to your own benefit whether you share or not. But if we as a culture can begin to open up that conversation, we can begin to turn hearts and minds. Vigilantes work because no one is able to stand up to them and to say to them, me too, it happened to me also. Texas and its laws will implode if we can walk that line between privacy and between benefit, between being silent and speaking out. Shabbat shalom. We're going to move now to page 282. I'll invite us to rise for Aleinu.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'tei gedula lioseder breshit, shelo asanu kigoyei harasod, velo samanu b'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu gahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam. V'anachnu korim umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom Bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad, u'shemo echad.
We can be seated together. Our thoughts now turn to those that we've loved and who we've lost. We're going to turn to page 294. And if I call the name of your loved one, I'll invite you to rise and share their memory with us. This Shabbat, we recall the following yard sites: Morris Busen, Julius Eberiel, Francis Feig, Milton Friedman, Sarah Glantz, Janet Goodkin, Marilyn Gross, Francis Kesselman, Herbert Lerner, Sophia Lazarova, Alexander Magnus, Martin Maltonfort, Bessie Margolis, Jack Maritzer, Paul Meyer, Edward Miller, Bella Nepo, Moises Olivius Chacon, Leonella Patrician, Sarah Ryder, Stanley Robbins, Howard Ruderman, Rose Schleien, Louis Schwartz, Finley Serlin, Jim Severins, Flora Solo, Jeannie Ida Spitz, Polina Tykon, Ann Vogel, and Becky Zaslav. And those who are in their Shiva and Shloshim periods of mourning: Warren Price, uncle of Lori Price Abrams, and Frances Sachs, mother of Ken Sachs and Diana Meadow. In addition, I'll invite us to rise and share the names of anyone for whom you are observing a yard site that might not have been on this list. And I'll invite you to rise and share the name of anyone for whom you are in your 1-year period of mourning for. We rise together, page 294, and I'll invite you, if you're joining us virtually, to put in names of those that you're thinking into the chat. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah,
V'alma divrei chirutei
v'amlech
v'amlech
malchutei, v'chayachon u'yomechon u'v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, v'hagala u'bizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam olamei almaya. Yiparach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei v'kudashah b'rechu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushvachata v'nechemata, damiram b'yama v'imru amen. Yehi Shalom Rabba Min Shemaya, Chaim Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen. Oseh Shalom B'mromav, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom, Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael V'imru.
Amen.
Please be seated. So before we move into our closing song, just a few announcements. Monday night starts the High Holy Days. If you haven't yet signed up for our High Holy Days, let us know. We would love to see you in person or virtually. You can still pick up prayer books, though we will have a virtual prayer book if you don't get around to picking it up. And look, we've got a ton of stuff happening throughout the whole month of Tishrei, not only Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, but a whole host of other things happening on Sukkot. And so take a look and you'll see all the good events around our congregation. So with that, we'll close today.
We are, yeah.
Yes.
It hasn't been in the Erev. I was just wondering if they're having the Yom Kippur food drive.
We are indeed.
Yes.
We are indeed. So you can come pick up bags. Actually, we've got them here. If you aren't going to be joining us in person, come find me at the end. I'll give you a bag. And then on Yom Kippur, you can swing by and drop off the food for the food drive. Absolutely.
Or you can come and get bags anytime in between.
Yes.
Right. Excellent. This is just a few days before the month of Elul is over, obviously, if Rosh Hashanah is on Monday night. And so it is the custom to meditate on the words of Psalm 27. And there are many sections. So we're going to meditate on this one to finish up. Bakshu fanai, seek my face, et panecha Adonai avakesh. And as I look to you, God, to your face, I hope that you will see me too. It's such a tension between who's turning where and who's missing who. And sometimes it's as simple as turning a little, realizing there's a lot of godness right there. So we chant together not together, as a call and response. Bakshu fanai, seek my face. Your turn. Bakshu fanai, seek my face. Et panecha Adonai avakesh. Et panecha Adonai avakesh. Again, Bakshu fanai, seek my face. Your turn. Bakshu fanai, seek my face. As I seek Shekhinah in this place, as I seek Shekhinah in this place, Lecha amad libi, to you does my heart speak. Lecha amad libi, to you does my heart speak. To you does my heart, to you does my heart cry. To you does my heart sing hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Shana Tova.
Shabbat Tova, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shabbat Shalom to those who are virtual. Come say a quick hello on our screen. And Shabbat Shalom to those who are here in person.
Thank you, Robert.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Hope everyone's doing well.
Everyone.
Hope you are
Thank
well
you,
too.
Sharon. Shabbat shalom, everyone.